Morning. Thanks for coming. Day twos are always a little slow in the morning. I appreciate you early birds for getting up. We're going to have a finance and capital panel. These guys are great. These are home run hitters when it comes to capitalization and solving problems from the banking side. We got Steve Kinard is moderating. He's with the Texas Blockchain Council. Kristine is with PM Squared. And Adam is with 2 Primes. So I'm going to let them take it. And again, thank you guys. We appreciate you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be able to moderate this panel, and it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart as a former banker, and the efforts that we have underway at the Texas Blockchain Council to bring more capital to the space and to bring the cost of capital lower and attract more institutional players. So with that, I'd like to give an opportunity for Kristine and Adam to introduce themselves and kind of give the basic story of how you ended up in Bitcoin and the role that each of your firms are actively playing in this space.
Is this on? Well, thank you. My name is Kristine Cranley. The way that I got in this space, I got bit by the Bitcoin bug about a year and a half ago. And I started just talking to anybody who would listen to me about it, especially about sound money, the economic situation, the money printing. And in the course of all the speaking that I did, I got a call from CEO of a registered investment advisor firm called PM Squared Financial. And this firm was, the founder of it, he used to work in a family office, but he wanted something kind of family office light for his individual clients. And he had been in Bitcoin since 2014. And so he jumped the regulatory hoops in order to offer cryptocurrency exposure to our clients. So some of the things we do is help move some IRA money and 401k money into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, because sometimes people have money that they want to give, but they don't have it ready at hand. So we do that, and then we're also have private equity investments, one of which is we're one of the largest investors in Giga Energy with the stranded natural gas, and currently working with banks right now to help them understand how the mining equipment can be used as an asset for leverage. So working on some bank loans and kind of orange pilling them in why they should loan to us for some of the stranded natural gas products because of the equipment that's involved there. So that's some of what we do.
Thank you. And I'm Adam Richard with 2 Prime. And the question was, how did I get into Bitcoin? So I had a software company back in 2012. I was CTO and came across the white paper, I guess, I don't know, December 2012, and kind of went down the rabbit hole. And then 6 months later, I realized there was no one I could speak to about Bitcoin. So I started the Houston Bitcoin Meetup, summer of 2013. Grew that to about 3,000 people before moving to Miami a few years ago. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey, starting companies, a lot of crypto startups along the way, consulting a lot of them along the way. Kind of did things backwards compared to a lot of people, going from kind of crypto and tech startup world to traditional finance, just so I could understand a bit more about RIAs, investment banking, deal structuring, and then joined a crypto hedge fund a few months ago.
So Adam, we were having a discussion earlier, and I think there's an important topic around the role of offshore trading venues and then raising capital and deploying capital from here in the United States. And particularly within that, as you comment on it, could you help people understand what is Deribit, how did it play a role in your operation, and why should people in the room probably know what Deribit is?
Yeah, so we are a U.S. fund, Delaware and Cayman master feeder, launched about 16 months ago. And we were actually trading volatility options, Bitcoin and ETH volatility options on Deribit kind of day one. So actually going back almost 2 years. And so in order to do that, we had these investors and even our own partners have their capital here in the U.S. wanted to trade these options, and the only way to do that was to trade it on an offshore exchange. So we had a lot of help from the outside between tax attorneys and legal counsel to help structure and put a system in place that allowed us to have the versatility in order to take advantage of these derivative strategies that our traders are so talented with. So we set up a BVI entity, and that allowed us to actually access the venues that we wanted to access. And in doing that, we've actually been able to create a structure that allows us to onboard U.S. investors and have them have accounts at this exchange as well. So some of our volume goes through the offshore exchanges like Deribit, but then we also interface with derivatives contracts in an OTC fashion through companies like Genesis Trading as well, which is here in the U.S. So we interface with multiple counterparties and kind of route orders where they need to go, where we see the biggest advantage.
Great. So if I understand that correctly, then your U.S. clients would have kind of a U.S.-based account, but then also a British Virgin Islands kind of twin account that facilitates this kind of access to that liquidity?
Yeah, it depends. So we're both a traditional fund, and we're also an RIA. We launched the RIA about 6 months ago in order to accommodate people that are already sitting on large positions of crypto. And so opening up a separately managed account under the RIA allows them to take advantage of our strategy in a tax advantageous way, right? Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Kristine, you mentioned something that I'm working on as well through the Texas Blockchain Council, and that's trying to bring legacy banks to this space broadly and help educate them that there's great value of collateral here and opportunity for them to bring capital. Could you just comment a little bit about your interaction with banks, your struggles, as I'm sure there have been struggles, and where you are in that process, and maybe what the path forward looks like?
Absolutely. The path forward, there's no way without education, because the thing that they have in their mind is this is magic internet money, and what is it? It can't be used as collateral. And so with the Texas Blockchain Council, they've had events in the Fort Worth area where we are trying to connect banking with Bitcoin mining just to help them understand. And but a lot of it just involves the personal conversation. So just yesterday, my coworker went in and just had to explain it to them all. When we're talking about Bitcoin mining, there's so much more than just the digital asset, the Bitcoin. There's the ASIC miners, which depreciate pretty quickly, but there's also the refurbished generators, there's the land. And so just taking the time with them, it's pretty amazing to kind of see the lights go off from something that's just very closed and we can't consider that to, oh wow, this is really exciting. Now, that being said, there's a lot of, it's always a slow process, right? So just because you convince someone at the bank doesn't mean that all the approvals are there. So just taking the time to continue to go before them and present and have all the numbers and the models and know your stuff when it comes, especially to all that involves the, I mean, there's a lot that is in synergy with the oil and gas because it's kind of a continuation of that. So just kind of being aware of all that and just slowly, relationship by relationship, step by step, helping them understand.
I think some of the people in the room may not be familiar with the story of Giga Energy. I've actually been to their manufacturing facility in East Texas, and it's pretty impressive. And I think it's a great story of kind of revitalization of that area and kind of the marriage of oil and gas and Bitcoin. So can you just talk about how y'all met the founders and kind of the story around that and why it's a differentiated approach in the mining space?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great story. So as I mentioned, our CEO, Phil Stanley, he's been in the Bitcoin space since 2014, and he was looking for Bitcoin mining to invest in because obviously it's where his heart was, but he passed up 100 different mining opportunities, and he contacted he just started asking around of, who are some of the best and most interesting miners in Texas. And so we were pointed to Matt and Brent, two young Aggies, and Brent Whitehead comes from a wildcatting family. So it's a really kind of a neat story. It's been in the family for generations, and they lived through all the ups and downs of Texas oil. And so Phil approached them and asked if they would take some of our money so that we could invest, and they didn't want it because they were bootstrapping everything and they didn't want to give away equity, and they had it under control. And so he just persisted for several months, and finally they let us in. And so we did the first seed round and then just developed a relationship there. And so we're able to do the second. But to tell a little bit more about what they do, so their focus is on stranded natural gas. So again, with the wildcat background that Brent has and the relationships that he has, they were able to go out to the fields where there's the stranded natural gas and transform through the generators in order to mine Bitcoin there. And originally they had ordered some stuff from another company out of the country, but the supply chain issues ended up getting so bad that they decided, hey, we can just do this ourselves. And so they're now not only mining Bitcoin and getting very, very good deals with some of the oil companies around to get very low, cheap power, but they're also selling the generators for others who want to do it, or also the data boxes. So they're working on several different vertically integrated streams, so purchasing fields, doing the mining themselves, and also making the products available for others. And kind of a neat story, I went out there to the Beaumont factory, and they have this ancestral house, which is kind of like a frat house, but much more clean. And so they're all just living, they say they never work a day in their life because they just love it so much. And just a whole bunch of engineers and people who love Bitcoin working to not only strengthen the grid, but also revitalize areas in Texas where they're bringing jobs as they go and retrieve this stranded natural gas, and also making it possible to sell that back to the grid as well whenever there's a need.
That's great, thanks. It is pretty cool driving out there because you're thinking to yourself, there's no way there's anybody back in these woods. And then sure enough, they've got a whole yard back there making gen sets and these data boxes. It's a worthwhile trip to make. So Adam, I want to take a minute to talk about the price of Bitcoin, which often we don't really want to focus on. I think most of us are bullish long term, but we have had a major pullback past couple of weeks. Can you comment on what have you seen in terms of volume and open interest, appetite for investment in the space, kind of just how have your investors and partners reacted to the volatility?
So the way we're reacting to it is that this is a very advantageous moment for us because we trade volatility. We're not really long or short Bitcoin, right? We just hold our clients' crypto, whether that's Bitcoin or ETH or whatever they have in their portfolio. We just hold that position as collateral for margin on the exchange. So what we care about is how volatile the markets are going to be. And so what's happened over these last few weeks has actually been really advantageous for us because it allows us to accumulate more Bitcoin. And that's the only metric that we care about. We do everything on a Bitcoin basis, and it's all about how much more Bitcoin do we have today than we had yesterday. With that said, given where the markets are at today, the investor interest, I think, is at a point where it's advantageous to move in now if you were to move in on a nominal USD basis, and if you solely look at it that way. So because we're kind of two things at once, we're a fund that you can invest in with dollars and look at it on a USD basis in terms of performance, but then where we work with miners and large Bitcoin whales, they move Bitcoin into a separately managed account through the RIA and look at things on a Bitcoin basis. So depending on which one of those you are, it looks different, but I think they're both at a moment today where, especially on a US dollar basis, it's advantageous to move in today because then our yield that we produce only looks that much better as we move up from here.
have you seen different levels of interest, or have your discussions been different between the more high net worth individual, the Bitcoin whale, as you called it, versus maybe a larger family office or institutional capital? What's the composition of people you work with, and how are those different classes of investor different in your experience?
Yeah, so we launched 15, 16 months ago. We've got about 30 something, maybe let's call it 40 investors in our fund. That's between the fund and the RIA. And that's made up of some high net worth individuals, handful of maybe a dozen or so family offices. And then we also have some fund of funds that invest in us as well. So it's a pretty good variety, right? And then the Bitcoin miners that we're onboarding today range in size. Some of them are on the smaller side, and then some of them are quite large. And so, yeah, it's a good variety.
Kristine, the investment in Giga is kind of more of a private equity type of structure. Is that something y'all are looking to expand? Do you see appetite for that kind of more of a private equity vehicle? And what kind of hold time do you see in that? Is it a 5-year cycle, or is it pretty open-ended? How are y'all approaching that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, it's private equity. Originally, the seed round, they're valued at $10 million. Second seed round, $30 million. I believe that Giga's desire is either to go public one day or, to get bought out. But it's purely a growth play. And there's a lot of investors right now that are looking for yield. And this wouldn't be a dividend kind of play, although we're also in the process of taking down a field, or actually this one's a contract, where investors can come in and whatever amount of money they put in, they're going to get that pro rata share back in Bitcoin. So similar to what Compass does, but on a grander scale, for larger investments. But we're also speaking to Compass and other places on how can we get the smaller investor in as well, because we can't really to Giga Energy. That's a private equity play. And to answer your question, yeah, it's an assumed probably 5-year hold time, but it really kind of just depends on what the company decides to do. Do they want to go public? At this point, we're doing capital rounds for the holding company, Giga, probably about once a year. So there's a liquidity event then if people want to get out and capitalize on the growth of their investment, but nobody wants to get out at this point. But then again, we have these other deals coming in that are not the holding company itself, but partnering with Giga to purchase, let's say, the power or the field. And then in those plays, you're not getting equity in Giga, but you are getting Bitcoin at the cost basis that they're mining it for. Over on the current one that we're about to do, we're assuming a 4-year hold time.
Great, that's helpful. So closing question for both of you. I'm curious, to what degree do you interact in or offer traditional financial markets, just S&P 500 kind of stuff? And what's your outlook for the way your firm views that? Do you want to just focus on being pure play Bitcoin, or how do you position that kind of within the investment space, and how do you see it evolving for your companies?
So in terms of traditional products, we don't have any plans to play in that space. We like to cater specifically to people that want crypto exposure or currently have crypto exposure and want yield on it. With that said, today our main strategy is trading volatility options, but we are looking to expand that to, if you have a separately managed account with us through the RIA, we will create bespoke strategies for you. So if you just want to hedge Bitcoin and buy and sell perps, like, we'll deploy that strategy for you. We are looking to partner up with some players in the mining space in order to offer hash rate derivatives. So we think that offering hash rate derivative strategies with Bitcoin yield strategies is a good pair that go together.
And for PM Squared Financial, we're a full-service RIA, registered investment advisor. We do the traditional markets. We do the crypto exposure. For us, because we believe in Bitcoin so much, mostly we're just layering our clients in and holding. So we're not trading the volatility, although we do have partnerships with people that do. Mostly what we get a lot of these days are qualified investors that are desperate to find yield. And so we have the pure growth play in the Giga Energy stuff, but we also have storage units have been some of our best returns, 8% preferred return. So a little bit of all of it.
Great. Well, thanks, guys. This has been eye-opening for me and good to learn more about what y'all are doing. If we have time, I'd like to open it up for questions. Not sure where we sit on the time allotted for this panel. Okay. I think they've got a mic for you back here.
All right, so addressing the Bitcoin mining, opening up to what you had mentioned, the smaller investors. One of the things that we were looking at originally and started exploring, but I'm curious on the legal aspect of it. How do you, and the reason I'm asking is, what have you found out as far as like to where you open up for investment through a coin, NFT, whatever product, to where you could put in X amount of dollar amount, receive, like take 70% of each dollar invested into mining equipment, 30% bringing it online, and then take whatever percentage of mining rewards that dollar has contributed to a monthly payout on Bitcoin. What are some of the legal ways that could be done that y'all have come across?
So what we've created through the RIA is actually a very simple process. It's literally as easy as signing an agreement that defines a strategy. So because we work with miners and everyone's kind of got a different risk tolerance, we want to clearly define the risk tolerance. And then at that point, the miner opens an account at usually Deribit, right? Because that's where we trade these options. You fund the account, and then we deploy our strategy. It's that simple.
Very cool.
Yeah. And also, if you are a U.S. company, it's not as easy as just opening up an account at Deribit because you're a U.S. entity. So we actually work with a couple of companies that can facilitate it for you, or we can actually open a sub-account under our account. If you kind of work with our legal counsel, it's a very easy process. Any other questions? Right after this.
All right, thanks, guys. I think that's a wrap for our panel. Appreciate y'all's time.